Check, check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's go! I want to talk to you about a couple of things. Let's start nice, okay? Let's get into some nice stuff. 50th, like top 50 player of all time for the Seattle Seahawks. Dude, you've won a Super Bowl. You played for the team you were a season ticket holder for, the Saskatchewan Roughriders. You're in the Saskatchewan Sports Hall of Fame. Where does this rank?
It's way up there. It's really up there. You know, it's a bit of a surprise. You know, I used to always say when I was playing that, you know, things like this are going to mean more to me when I retire, and it's true. You know, this means a lot. You know, the team is really doing it up. We're having a big celebration in October. You know, I just didn't expect it, and it was it's just a cool thing, and it means a lot to me. And I've kind of been sitting in it for a couple of weeks now, and been able to enjoy it more than, you know, the thing when things like this happened to me when I was playing.
Okay, so I'm not going to get into religion with you. I don't know if you believe in a higher power or not, but at the very least, do you stop and just like, I know you do, but I'm going to ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you remind yourself how grateful, like how good you've had it? Like, listen, it hasn't been easy. I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
but just what kind of charmed life you have now. You have an actress / comedian wife. You've got a lot of money. You own a lot of different sports teams. And it all started in Regina. And it started because you were a Canadian and because the ratio was there for you.
That's 100% correct. You know, without the CFL, none of this happened. None of this would have happened without the CFL. So yeah, you look at it sometimes and you just you have to pinch yourself, you know. And I think one of the best things that I did during my whole career was never take anything for granted. You know, I think that's part of the reason why I was able to move on so quickly after football. You know, I didn't lay on the couch for 2 years and wonder what was next and wanting to go back and play football because, you know, I didn't take any of it for granted. I enjoyed it all. And, you know, that's kind of why I think I've been so happy with everything and so happy with my next part of my life here. And, you know, but as you said, you know, just coming from Regina, I never could have dreamt all this stuff happening to me. And, you know, I'm still enjoying it and still taking it all in when things like this happen.
Yeah, I love watching you and your wife on Instagram and stuff with your book club and all that stuff and your Christmas drinks and all that stuff. Hey, listen, I never asked you this before. Did you regret Saskatchewan not being the last stop on your football career? Like you left Saskatchewan because they punted you, pardon the pun, out, and you went to Edmonton. Any regrets on that? Not like, would it have been a better ending had it been in Saskatchewan?
No, not at all. I think it ended exactly the way it was supposed to end. You know, I think that it would have, you know, to do something like, you know, win the Grey Cup in your last game and to go out as a rider and blah, 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 do all that, you know, would that put him in the storybook ending? Kind of, but, you know, I don't think my career has been a storybook. You know, it's been a gritty career. You know, I've kind of, as I've said, I've kind of done it my way. And, you know, to go out playing in Edmonton and, you know, finishing my last game in front of 2,000 people with a game that no one cared about, it's kind of on brand for me. You know what I mean? I kind of liked it that way. You know, I think that was kind of the perfect ending for me.
Yeah. One more thing before I let you go to the other topic I wanted to really talk to you about. Well, listen, I like talking about your career, but there's something else that you were eager to talk to me about. Frank McChrystal goes into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. I was proud to say I got the paperwork going for it, and I'm very happy that he's getting in. He when I had him on, talked about you and about how you played receiver, you kicked, you did all this stuff as one of the players he talked about. Just your thoughts on Frank, Bernie, who should be right there with him. Just your thoughts on those guys and what Frank did for your career.
So well deserved. I mean, I think sometimes some of Frank's accomplishments don't get recognized nationally as they should because, you know, some people nationally don't recognize the junior game as much as they should. And, you know, back then it was even better, I will say, that the junior game was a very high level of football. It still is, but back then I think it was even better. And just to see what Frank did over those years, what Frank did for my career, as I said, you know, you look back and you think about so many, like, if that didn't happen, there were so many things that had to happen for me to, you know, have the career I had. And had not been coached by Frank McChrystal, I wouldn't have had the career I had. You know, he was really the first person to really let me believe he would tell me all the time, like, Johnny, you know, Frank talks, you know. He
Yeah.
said, John, that doesn't matter if you're in Texas or Saskatchewan. You know, if you're good enough, they're going to find you. My dad used to say that too. And when I was 19 years old, he started telling me, you're going to be playing on Sundays someday. You're going to be playing on Sunday. And he just kept on telling me that until I started believing it. You know, and, you know, no one else was saying that you're going to play in the NFL except for Frank. And I really started believing it. And, you know, without that, I wouldn't have made it to where I've been. But as you said, it's so well-deserved that he's going into the Hall of Fame. I'm so glad that he's getting this recognition. To go to the Canadian Football Hall of Fame is massive. It's a massive accomplishment that very few guys ever get to do. And as you said, I think the only bad part is I wish that Bernie was going in right beside him, because Bernie deserves it just as much as he does.
I think we're trying to get Bernie there with him, so that'll be good if they both can go together, because it's like Draisaitl and McDavid. It's like Reed and Lancaster. Those two are locked at the hip, Gretzky and Curry or Messier. Okay, so let's talk about this, because I've asked your old teammate Luke Willson to come on this podcast 3 times, and all I've heard is crickets. Okay, crickets, nothing. Okay, not gonna get. I don't want to get into a war of words with him. He likes to name call. I'm not gonna name call. But since I can't have Luke Willson on here because he doesn't have the balls to come on here, I'm gonna ask you, Jon Ryan. What? I can't figure this out. So help me out. Maybe I'm wrong. I can't figure this out. What is going through his mind when he puts out a tweet like he just did about the Riders-Argos game being a crappy football game? And imagine this. Okay, so imagine this. Picture this, okay? He played in the NFL, 12 years? Not talking about his football talent at all. You won a Super Bowl together. And I said, actually, on my post-game show that they've got a miscast. He should be in the booth as a color guy, not drawing up plays on the sidelines as a sideline reporter. He's like smart. He knows football. That's not what I'm saying. But how can TSN let a guy who called the game Friday Night Football, which is the equivalent of Sunday Night Football in the NFL, okay, it's your feature game, how can they let him go on social media and absolutely tear a strip off of what was the most exciting game of the weekend by calling it a crappy product? I don't understand that. You can't answer for TSN, but what's he trying to do, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, before we get into this, I'm going to tell you, I love Luke Willson. He's a fantastic teammate, one of my favorite teammates I've ever had. So anything that I say to you right now is something I would say right to Luke Wilson's face. Just say that before anyone says, "Oh, John's bad-mouthing behind his back." I don't agree with what he said, and I don't agree with what he said in the context in which he said it. To say that was a bad product, it's a bit of a slap in the face to the Canadian Football League, in my opinion.
A bit.
I thought. Yeah, well, I'm trying to be diplomatic here, Ballsy.
Well, I'm not. That's bullshit.
Yeah. And so Luke, the good thing about Luke is he does have hot takes. It does get people talking about football. It's getting people to talk about Canadian football. In this case, I think it's a little bit negative. I think that was a great football game. I think that some of his tweets kind of read like an American that almost doesn't understand it or doesn't like the Canadian game.
Let me stop you. He doesn't understand the game, and I don't know how much he likes the game. He did say in his tweet that there were some great games, and he did say there's some great athletes, and he has on the sidelines, but I don't think he really knows the game. I don't think he knows the game. He's been here for 3 days, okay? So to be here for a cup of coffee and pontificate that this guy's an idiot and you're bad for the league, like, come on, man. Like, I get hot takes, and it's okay to have a hot take, John, but have some facts to back it up. Like, this is the thing I don't get about the Luke Wilsons or the Dave Naylors or these guys, or even the fans in their basement saying it's a crappy league. What's your solution then? What's your solution?
Right.
Like, what's the solution?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an out-of-place comment coming from a guy who has not been around the Canadian Football League for very long. Okay, this guy, he's been covering the NFL, and he played in the NFL for how many years? And I think it's a bad look for him to come and badmouth the Canadian Football League. And this, as I said, Ballsy, this is all things I'd say right to his face because I love the guy. And also, Ballsy, I know that you want to, destroy him, which it's great. But if I had $1 billion and I owned TSN, the very first thing I'd do would put you two on a show together. Wilson Balls. It'd be a fantastic show because you guys both have such hot takes and really great comments, and you guys are both so passionate about it that I would love for him to come on here. Because I think you guys would be.
I'd love for him too. I haven't called him one name. I'm just telling you right now that if you're going to have a hot take, you need to have something to back it up. And here's he's talking about, let's go through some of the things. He's talking about the kick goes through the end zone and it's not touched. Okay, so it's a 1 minute and 39-second drive, and all the tackles, I think he said, are in bounds. I don't have it word for word. Basically, he was downplaying what happened in that game. Luke, if that's the NFL, that doesn't happen. 1 minute, we had a 17-play drive in that game. We had a touchdown with 1:39 to go with a 2-point conversion catch in the back of the end zone. And then we had a kickoff return for a touchdown. And yes, there were only 11 guys on the field. I believe I watched the Jon Ryan Seattle Seahawks team chase a punt returner on the other side of the field that didn't even have the ball. Okay, so shit happens in football, and you can make fun of a referee making a missed call, or you could say a referee missed the call; it should have been brought back. Seattle Seahawks fail Mary with replacement refs. How about
Hail Mary? Hail Mary.
Yeah. How
dare you?
Okay, how about the coin toss, the American Thanksgiving game between Pittsburgh and the Lions when the ref got the call wrong? How about the lights going off in the Super Bowl? There are blemishes in both leagues, man.
Absolutely, and there's going to be. Now, that's why I don't agree with him going after it like that, because stuff happens, and I feel like he's kind of trying to, as you said, draw comparisons to CFL and NFL, saying, the point for the ruse, and that's part of the game, that's part of the strategy. Part of the strategy is be able to get the ball back with 1:39 left and be able to march the ball downfield without having to go out of bounds on every single play, because that's the way the clock moves in the final 2 minutes in final 3 minutes in a CFL game. It's a different game than the NFL. And we don't want to turn it into the NFL, so these are kind of things that happen in the CFL on a regular basis that don't happen in the NFL, and I think they're exciting.
So you're a business owner. You've played in the league. It's funny. Not funny. You're a perfect guy to talk to. And we've talked about this before, but it's worth having you on again. You were a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
You played in the NFL. You played in the CFL. You're now a sports business owner. So what's wrong with the CFL? Why are we at 15? Why are we at 15,000? How would you fix that? I have a couple of opinions, but how would you fix it? Because if anybody says, John, turn it to 4 downs, you know what the next thing you're going to hear is? Well, it's just a minor league for the NFL.
It'd be a farm league. If we go to 4 downs, it's a farm league. Yeah, that's 100%. I think there's a lot of things that they could do, and I don't think any of it really has to do with the product on the field. The product on the field is fine. Product on the field isn't really what puts butts in seats, to be honest with you. It helps. Winning helps. All that helps. But there's so many things the league could do. Stop putting games in Saskatchewan on Thursday nights. I would love to see the whole balance sheet of if more money comes from the stands or more money comes from TSN, because it's always been a gate-driven league. It's always been about butts and seats is what drives the financial meter up. And right now, when I look at something, I think the average attendance last week was 15,000. Which now we're starting to teeter on like USL type numbers.
Yeah.
But when you do things like put the Riders at home on a Thursday night, you need to know that half the fans for the Rider games come from outside of city. Okay?
Yeah, but let me stop you there. You're right. Okay, you're right. Okay. You're right. Okay. But Winnipeg doesn't seem to have any problems putting people in on a Thursday night. I went to both Winnipeg and Saskatchewan. Winnipeg was a preseason game. Much better game day. Much better presentation. Fans are into it. It's a party. Looks like they've tapped into the new immigrants, because I saw a lot of new immigrants or new Canadians in their bomber jerseys.
Awesome.
I know they've got 850,000 people there. That's always the argument. And I'm not cutting down Rider Nation. But how about this? You're right. You hit the nail right on the head. And it's not going to be an overnight fix. When you lose those fans, just like you lose listeners in radio, I always said, it takes forever to get them back if you ever get them back. So you need a plan. So what's the TV contract? How much does that bring in? Maybe that does dissipate the crowd attendance. But how about giving free tickets to young people under 12 years old accompanied by an adult? Like we got to do something here.
Yeah, we've lost in Saskatchewan. We've lost a big chunk of fans support over these last 10 years, 5 years, whatever. Definitely post-COVID. You know, and I don't know if the COVID was a big factor, but I think for years with the new stadium, even the last 5 years in the old stadium, the Riders didn't have to market that much. They were selling out almost every game. The whole marketing thing was, look at this stadium, come and sit in this stadium, and they forgot to market the game, market the party around it, and now they're playing catch up. You know, they lost 5 years now. Now they're playing catch up, and it shows because now we're having, 15,000 fans, 20,000 fans. You know, it looks bad when you see 15,000 green seats open. You know, so I think there has to be some better marketing. They have to sell the party. I would like to see every football game being played on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Myself.
Well, do you remember back in the day? You're about 10 years younger than me, so maybe it was a little different. But I remember we used to have Father Balzer at Holy Child Church, and I used to love being an altar server on the Sundays of Rider game day because there was no homily because he was a season ticket holder. He's like, "There's no homily today. Rider game got to go 1:00 kickoff." There was like Sunday 1:00 kickoffs. Like I like Sunday. Why not Sunday afternoon games? We get so worried about the NFL. Like, just let's be Canada.
Even if not, we have 10 weeks of football before the NFL starts playing. We have 10 weeks, and those are beautiful Sunday afternoons for those 10 weeks. I don't know why we're not using those games. If CFL football should be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, in my opinion. I remember as a kid going to that Friday night game. That was I looked forward to it all week. It was the anticipation of going to that Friday night game. There's something special about it. Be able to watch the game under the lights on a Friday night, not having to go to school the next day. It was amazing, and I feel like we've kind of lost that feeling.
Yeah, and that's my point. And that's my point with a guy like Luke Willson. Luke Willson has a following for his Jon Ryan bit with the NFL. So they put him on the CFL broadcast, hoping to add some credibility because he's a Canadian that won the Super Bowl and everything like yourself. So, okay, if the NFL is the big thing and it's going to get more eyes on it, okay. So if I'm a casual fan, he already got Michael Ball and Jon Ryan. But if I'm a casual fan showing up and I'm watching this game and then Luke Willson goes on social media where all the young people hang out and says, it's crappy football on your featured Friday night. Imagine if Michelle Tafoya or Aaron Andrews did that. They wouldn't be doing any more NFL sidelines. Like, I don't get what the play is. We got Dave Naylor talking about Canadians and how, hey, I respect Dave for his reporting, but why do we have to go with the same old lazy narratives that Canadians American coaches should be able to play Americans wherever they want, whenever they want, how much they want. And yes, we can still have 21 Canadians, but basically they're placeholders. Why not just it's the best version of football on the planet, played by world-class athletes, end of discussion.
Yeah, when we start talking about this, and it comes up every year about, why should we have to play the Canadians, blah, blah. You're almost drawing attention saying, oh, these Canadians aren't as good. Is what we're saying. And it's a terrible narrative because these Canadians are as good. I could feel a whole team with all Canadians that would be competitive for sure. I guarantee it. We're starting to see Canadian quarterbacks come into the league. We're seeing Canadians. I hate this whole narrative and saying that, well, we should be able to play whoever we want, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, you're making Canadians seem like they're not as good. And I hate that whole narrative.
And shouldn't that be the commissioner? Like, I don't know Stuart Johnston. I've asked to have him on, like I said, and he hasn't come on yet. They haven't returned my calls. You'd think a league, John, that has 15,000 fans, average attendance, would take every type of chance at a promotional thing, a PR podcast, whether it's a guy doing it 30 years or somebody just doing it 2 years or for fun in their basement. You think you take every opportunity to talk. But my thing is this now. We need good messaging. And shouldn't he worked at TSN. Call him up and say, that's it. Enough of the negativity about our league. Like that, it's positive messaging. That's what the NFL's overcome CTE. They've overcome wife beaters. They've overcome DUIs that kill people while driving. I mean, the list goes on and on and on because of messaging.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that the CFL should take absolutely every media opportunity they have. For players, for the commissioner. The commissioner should be on a phone for 2 or 3 hours a day just doing media. The more you're out there, the more you get. To be able to buy a brand, you have to see it messaged like 10 times or something like that before you buy into it. And it's the same thing for buying a CFL ticket. You have to see that advertisement. You have to see a player. You have to see a media thing 10 times before you're like, hey, maybe I'm going to buy a ticket. And the more you can get out there. And this stuff, Ballsy, coming on this show, you know what it cost me to come on this show? Nothing.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of this stuff right now, especially with social media, all this stuff is free to market your players, to market your brand, to market your commissioner, all this stuff. And I don't feel like they're totally taking advantage of it. They're doing things
they don't do the little things right, John. At halftime, they posted the score on their social media. Riders 17, Toronto 7. The score was 17-10. That doesn't cost any money. Then people are like, well, that's a bush league. You know what I mean? Do the little things right.
It drives me crazy when I go to their social media or go to their website and I can't find a simple stat, or I can't find I click on a player's. I'm watching a game and I see the box score or whatever you want to call it in football, and I click on a guy's name because I want to see where he's from, what school, and there's no link to his name. Like, it's little tiny things like that where it sounds so small, but those things add up.
Yeah, absolutely. They add up. And then I get, well, Ballsy's the old guard. He buries his head in the sand. He doesn't, he protects the league and doesn't call it like he sees. Like, Luke Willson isn't the first guy that's called it like he sees it. Do you understand why I'm sitting here talking to you and not the voice of a team? Because I do call it like I see it. Like, come on, give me a break.
No, I don't think you've ever been accused for not calling it as you see it, Ballsy. You definitely leave it all out there, and you never hold words back.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm very passionate about this league, but it is at a very critical time. I know we say that every 5 years, but I feel like it is. You know better than anybody. There's such a competition for dollars now that and people say, well, it costs too much to go to games. And I'm not judging people for how much, what they have in their bank account, because listen, I'll get into that in a second. Okay. So I don't know people's bank accounts and their financial stuff, and I don't want to say that, but people will spend money, and you maybe could speak to this. People will spend money if you give them a reason. How many buddies here wouldn't go to a Rams game to watch Jon Ryan, and I know it's apples and oranges, but hear me out. They wouldn't spend $20 to go watch Jon Ryan or Akeem Hicks, but then they'll get together and go on a boys' trip to Chicago or Seattle to watch Jon Ryan and pay thousands of dollars. People will spend money if you give them a reason to spend money.
I 100% agree with that. That's a fact. And I don't want to compare it to we have this little baseball team in Southeast Portland. And, last night we, sold it out. And again, we sell it almost every game, 4,000 people. And I would guess that maybe a quarter of the people are there to watch the game. It's just marketing. You do all the little stuff. You look at our social media. We probably have more tweets and more Instagram messages during a game than the Riders do. And it's not hard to do. It's free. It's 100% free. And this marketing is something that's pretty easy to do. And, you can convince people why they need to spend their money on your event and why it's a good deal for them to spend their money on your event. And it's as you said, I feel like we have the same conversation, especially lately, about the crossroads that the CFL is on right now.
Well, and you said it's free, right? It's free. Like, listen, I'm making no money at this thing that I'm doing right now. I'm actually losing a bit of money. That's why I'm working at a car lot, okay? At Crestview Chrysler, give a plug there. That's why I'm working at a car lot. I'd love to be doing this full time, but I can't yet because it's not self-sustainable, because we've let the league slide so far that the interest, you got to build it back up, and it's not going to take a year. It's going to take 10 years, but you got to spend money to make money. And the CFL just doesn't, like, hey, Amar Dolman does, and I'm not saying these owners, they're spending money to keep the league alive. They're not getting rich. I don't want to be overly critical, but you're going to have to promote. Like, look at this. If this was the NFL, we would have had a 30 for 30 on the 2009 13th man. That whole thing just 100%. Went away. That whole thing went away in 2 months. And like, how many documentaries do they have on the Tuck game? They're sitting down with Woodson and Brady. Okay, or how about Zach Collaros, one of the greatest comeback stories in anywhere in professional football? He's cast aside. The Argos are going to sign him to a deal, but Jim Pop gets fired before, and the contract is signed in the front desk or in the top drawer of the desk. He gets traded to Winnipeg, and they've been to every Grey Cup since. Think about that. That's one of the greatest stories of all time. And,
absolutely.
And we don't promote it.
What I say is, November 26th hits, wherever the Grey Cup is the next day, it feels like the league locks up the doors and comes back in May.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? Like, why doesn't TSN have a 30 for 30, whatever you want to call it, on these stories? There's so many amazing stories. CFL has some of the best stories ever because it's an underdog league. You have guys that were, almost every guy in this league was cast aside by someone else, whether it be the NFL or what have you. And you look at a story like Zach Collaros was left to die in 2019. He was when he left the Riders and Cody Fajardo came in and played great. He was left. That was supposed to be the end of his career. That was 6 years ago. The guy's just threw his 200th touchdown pass, won Grey Cups, gone to every Grey Cup, league MVP after death. You know what I mean? Like, why is this? This is like after his funeral, he did all this.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible.
One other thing about
people need to be talking about it.
Yes, one other thing about the Canadian ratio. I'll bring this up right now. In a city with an NHL team, okay? Winnipeg, Manitoba. Mm-hmm. Because of the Canadian ratio, your top 5 popular athletes in Winnipeg would probably be Connor Hellebuck, number 1, the goalie.
Yeah.
And then Brady Oliveira and Nick Dembski. Those would be your top 3. Mark Scheifele would come in number 4 and probably Zach Collaros at number 5. Think about that. And Collaros is American, but you've got 2 Canadians that are superstars in that town and wouldn't get a sniff without the ratio. And that's the thing that pisses me off. It's like we're all elbows up, and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just won the MVP and all this stuff, and he's a Canadian. And Sam Bennett's the Conn Smythe Trophy winner, the reigning Conn Smythe Trophy winner as NHL playoff MVP, and he's Canadian. And Freddie Freeman's the World Series MVP, and he's Canadian. And then we get to the CFL, and it's like, we know Canadian football player. Why do we not saving jobs for them? We're going to protect everybody's job but the Canadian football players. I don't get it.
Yeah, it drives me absolutely crazy. I was in San Diego this last weekend for NFL free agent competition among kickers, and I was talking to some Canadian kickers there, and they're like, "We have nowhere to play now. There's nowhere to play because I can't get a shot in the NFL till I go to the CFL to really prove myself, get some good game film. I have this game film from Canada that they don't really respect in terms of Canadian college, and these are guys that would have been kicking in the CFL 10 years ago." And now, because they've replaced all the punters with Australians, they don't get the shot anymore. And I don't know why we're doing this. And, I'm trying not to bitch about the CFL because I love it. I'm sitting right here in this chair today because of the CFL. I heard Wayne Gretzky talk. He goes, how can I shit on the NHL when they gave me everything? And that kind of put that in perspective for me because it's hard for me to shit on the CFL because they've given me everything. But at the same time, I don't want it going away. And I don't want these guys not getting opportunities. The opportunities that I got and why I'm sitting in this chair right now are now being taken by Australians. It makes no sense to me.
Okay. Yeah, that is absolutely true. And on that note, I want to wrap up with this. Brett Lothar. Just talk about that. He had a holder for you or in you. Then he had a Korzak, and then he leaves for Rutgers, and now he's got Couch. Talk about that. We've touched on that a bit. Is that really messing with him? Like, do you think, or what do you think is going on with Brett Lothar early on? We had this last year too, and then he responded.
I haven't talked to him about it, but the holder is such a big deal. It's the most underrated position on the entire field. No one notices the holder until they screw up really badly. When I watch college games, I say half the kicks are missed, and half of them are missed because of the holder. And no one, the announcers don't know it. No one knows it, but it's you have. There's a relationship between a holder and a kicker, and it has to be a trust thing. When the ball is snapped till it's hold, till it's kicked, it takes about 1.3 seconds, that whole entire thing. So if that ball's not down, placed properly, and he's not trusting it, and all of a sudden he starts to hesitate or something happens, the whole entire thing is off. And that, I haven't totally talked to Brett about this, so it's still pretty early in the season with only 3 games with this holder. He's going to turn it around, start to trust him, get more reps with him. But it's a little bit frustrating when you're switching out holders as often he has in the last few years.
Okay, and with that in mind, I brought this up too on my little rant. When we're critiquing the CFL as Luke did, and it's a garbage product, or that game was garbage. Sorry, correction. I would say this. Because of only 2 weeks you got a short training camp and then 2 week preseason, I take the first 2 or 3 weeks as kind of an extension of the preseason. I don't really weigh too much into what I'm seeing the first 3 weeks. That's the other critique I have on his criticism. It's like, come on, man. You played pro football, man. Luke, come on, man. Like, it takes about 4, 5, 6 weeks for teams to get in sync.
It's the same in the NFL. Those first 2 weeks, especially that first week, it's a crapshoot. You don't even bother gambling on any of the games because you don't know what's going to happen. Especially now when quarterbacks are making $55 million, no one wants to see them play on those 3 preseason games. So the product isn't great for the first 2 weeks in the NFL either. If you want to talk about that, and with the CFL being 18 weeks long with 21 weeks long, it takes a bit to get into the rhythm of things, and especially with that short training camp when you have 2 games and usually the veterans only play for one half of one of those games, it takes a little bit to kind of get in the groove for sure.
Yeah. All right, man. And so far through the first 3 weeks, Riders are 3-0. I would say, they've played Eastern teams. Like I said, I'm not going to read too much into it, but good teams take care of business, and they did take care of it. They found a way to get that done anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people out there being negative about this and saying, why did it have to go to the last play of the game for you guys to win? But a win's a win. There's no pitchers on the scorecard, as they say. They're 3-0 right now. Things are good. Life is good in Saskatchewan, I'm sure.
And that's what I mean, man. That's what I mean. Like, yes, was that game picture perfect? No. It was sloppy on both sides. Ryan Dinwiddie was pissed off at his team, and he should be. And Corey May shouldn't be happy with all those penalties. In terms of that, I agree with Luke Willson 100%. Okay, it was sloppy. But it had everything, man. It had great interceptions. It had some great throws. It had some big hits. It had a walk-off touchdown for the win.
I thought it was the most Canadian Football League game there could be. You get a little bit of everything. You get missed field goals for points. You get 2-point conversions. You have kickoffs for touchdowns. You kind of got a little bit of it all. I thought that was just like a very typical and exciting CFL football game.
And what bothers me about, I guess maybe I'm lumping Luke in here a little bit. I'll be fair. I just don't like that elitist attitude, and maybe I'm being presumptuous there. But it's like, we can't like anything unless the Americans validate it for us. Do you know what I mean? Like Shania Twain, she used to come to CKRM and beg to go for lunch with the guys. Now they'd all be begging for her to come to lunch with her. She's big because she went to the States and the Americans thought she was great. Same with Nickelback. I emceed a thing for them when they were first starting out at the State in Regina. They couldn't even sell at a 400-seat venue, but they go to the States, are the biggest thing, and now all of a sudden Nickelback's great. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, why do we have to validate? We've got the Canadian football 3-down game. We're the only one that plays the 3-down game. Why? Kicking rules. Why would we want to change any of that? That's not broken.
I agree with you. The old saying, I always say, to make it big in Canada, you got to go down south first. You're not big in Canada until you're big in the U.S. The only people that really bucked that trend was Tragically Hip. But, this game should be celebrated more than it is. I love it. It's the most uniquely Canadian thing we have. It's the only sport in Canada where it's only Canadian.
Mm-hmm. Well, and to get the young people, John, and you know this, lastly, you're going to have a serious conversation. We might piss off Michael Ball and Gertrude and Stan, who have been season ticket holders forever, and we might lose 1 or 2 of them. But hopefully we gain back 3 or 4 young people. You're going to have a conversation about that.
It's one of the things that I've learned now from owning sports teams, especially when you take over a sports team. All the guys that have been there forever, in terms of the fans, they think they run the team. And the hardest lesson I learned is sometimes you have to lose a fan to gain 2. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where we're at right now because, the NFL is a monster. And these kids these days, they're watching the NFL. And I'm not saying we're going to turn into the NFL, but I just worked a football camp out in Vancouver with Michael Thomas the other day, the NFL flag football camp in Canada. It's the biggest league in Regina, too. And these kids are watching it. Now we have to figure out a way for them to watch Canadian football. Well, I don't know what it's going to take, but we have to.
One of them, John, is don't dump the fall. When you had the fall CFL, like they had the fall league here in Regina, and the CFL was the sponsor of flag football, and then they decided to get out of it, and the NFL quickly jumped in. It's like, would you rather have a kid running around in a BC Lions jersey or a Detroit Lions jersey?
Yeah, I know, and it's crazy. The NFL walked in right under the CFL's nose and basically stole 15 years of viewership. Yeah, you took these kids 5 to 15 that are wearing NFL jerseys for 10 straight years on their back. What are they going to watch come the weekend?
Sometimes common sense isn't very common, is it?
No, no.
And that's the thing.
It's
It
hard.
goes back to what I said. We could talk forever. You got to spend money to make money. You got to take a loss to grow something. Do you know what I mean?
I agree, and it's the thing is, I feel like they're spending all this money on global brand instead of worrying about being right here in our backyard in Canada. So I'm trying not to bitch about it, Ballsy, but it's been hard the last couple of years.
Yep, no kidding. Hey, man, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Congratulations on being a top 50 Seahawk of all time. That's cool, man.
Thank
Top
you.
50 of an NFL team.
Very, very, very cool. 50 years to think that, you think back and you think 50 years, kind of one guy per year is what it averages out to be. And to think that, I'm considered one of those guys is, quite the honor. And before I go, a shout out to the Portland Pickles. Last night, walk-off win, 19-1. 19-1 the Portland Pickles are. They've almost clinched the first half already, and we still have 7 games to go.
You got to watch that documentary, Pickles, Pickles, Pickles. If you haven't seen it, you can YouTube it. It's a great. I've watched it 3 or 4 times. It shows what John and his ownership group are doing. And so, what's the sellout there?
30, just over 3,700.
And so, where does that rank in the league in terms of what you're doing there?
That for attendance, it's usually 1 or 2. Edmonton has come in about 2 years ago, an expansion team in Edmonton, 2022, I guess, and they're crushing it. They're doing great. Canada Day games like 8,000-9,000. They're doing great, and it's just been it makes me proud to bring a team in from Canada and then watch them crush it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you've been a big advocate of Canada being in the States. So if we truly are Canadian, Canada is where it's at for football. Like, let's support all levels of football. And that's the other thing. We started with Frank McChrystal. The CFL is not a standalone league. It is intertwined to Canada. It's intertwined to the fabric of football, okay? And that's why it's not the CFL Hall of Fame. That's why it's the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. That's a prime example right there.
Yeah, that's a great point. It intertwined all the way down to, RMF football in Regina, going through high school, college. They're all together. That's a really good point, is why it is the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, or the Canadian Hall of Fame, not the CFL Hall of Fame. I think I said it right.
Yeah, Canadian Football Hall of Fame.
That's exactly why it is. So I think if people could see that it's pretty special.
Man, you're special too. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule. I appreciate it, man.
Anytime, buddy.